Good afternoon, sir. Um, Following discussions with my client this morning, my client has decided they no longer wish to lead evidence from Mr. Farningham anymore.
Ah, right.
I should perhaps also bring to sir's attention that I have, within the last half hour, approached agents acting on behalf of Scottish Water with a proposal. I'm not sure whether they have had a chance to review that yet or not. We have put forward a proposal to them that if they are prepared to allow the Church of Scotland General Trustees unrestricted rights of access and rights to upgrade, maintain and repair and install services over the area being purchased from them, which I don't believe is a matter in dispute, then I'm instructed to drop their objection to Scottish Water's order.
Okay, thanks for that information. I mean, my feeling is probably to sort of reconvene tomorrow then, and basically see what progress is made. Mr. O'Carroll, have you any thoughts on the situation?
I do have thoughts. I'm not sure if it would be necessary to reconvene tomorrow, but I'll just tell you my thoughts and then we'll talk about it. So you'll obviously be very well aware that the draft CPO is document 1. Document 1 just simply says, well, what it says. It's a short paragraph, and that the acquiring authority will be able to purchase compulsorily the land which is then set out in the annex to that CPO. So it doesn't provide in itself any qualifications to that. It's simply a purchase and a transfer of title by virtue of a general vesting declaration.
Yeah.
You, as you've pointed out at the outset, and quite correctly in terms of legislation, have the right to simply grant it simpliciter, or to grant it with conditions as you see fit, or to refuse. Now, the suggestion by Mr. Di Paolo, which is actually conditional withdrawal, the conditions have only been made aware to me. I have an email from Mr. Di Paolo addressed to me at the same time as those instructing me, dated 13/24. So that's just over half an hour before we were convening today to hear Mr. Farningham's evidence. We haven't had time to consider this, and
No.
it's not as straightforward as one might think. So I do appreciate that the basis of the cross-examination of Mr. Newlands yesterday was predicated on what had been discussed in the past. But that is basically by way of looking at the stance and the viewpoints of the parties. It doesn't affect you and your decision, because you and the ministers ultimately have a discretion which is different. So the question is, really, am I to be instructed by my clients to invite you to confirm the order subject to the condition which is now being suggested by Mr. Di Paolo? And I don't have instructions to do that. That seems to be, to my mind, the only way that would actually fulfill the basis upon which Mr. Di Paolo and his clients are withdrawing, and would be the only fair way that I could go forward. And I don't have instructions to do that. Now, that's the position as I see it. If you have a contrary view, then I'm about to stop talking. But if you don't disagree with me on the position that I'm now in at the very last minute, then I think what might be helpful would be for me to consult with my clients about what they wish to do with regard to that. And it would be helpful if you had confirmation that you agree with me that that's the position I'm effectively in with regard to where we're now at, midway through a compulsory purchase inquiry.
Yes, obviously a little bit unexpected. I appreciate you've only just found out this information. You need time to speak to your clients. So I think that's the first point, that you should be allowed to do that. How much time would you think you'd need to to consult your clients and to assess the situation.
My instructing agent has just come back in answer to that and suggested half an hour.
Right. Do you feel you need any longer than half an hour?
Well, you know, sir, these things always take longer than we say. So usually I think as a rule of thumb, whatever a lawyer says, you should double it. But I'm fairly disciplined about these things. If I say half an hour, I mean it. However, we're now at 5 past. So I would suggest to be on the safe side and to be absolutely here firmly at my desk, fully instructed. I would say 1:45 would be a good time to adjourn until.
That's fine. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll reopen the inquiry at
I
1:45.
might say though that again, just before we do adjourn, it is conceivable that I would be given instructions not to accept the condition upon which the Church of Scotland wishes to withdraw.
Yeah.
And in that event, then it would only be fair that if we don't accept their withdrawal, we're not prepared to accept it on those terms, and therefore for me to make those submissions at the end when I'm inviting you to confirm the order. If we're not prepared to do that, then it would only be fair that the Church of Scotland should be allowed to lead their witness after all if they're not withdrawing. So that's perhaps another matter which might need to be borne in mind with the mix. But anyway, first things first, I will take those instructions and get back to you at 2:45.
1:45. Yes.
Thank you very
Thanks
much.
very much. Thanks, Mr. DePaola. Thank you, Mr. O'Carroll. Hear me now? Yes. Yeah, 2:45, so we'll reopen the inquiry. I don't know who'd like to speak first on the situation. Mr. or Carol, thank you.
Mr. Seddon, thank you very much for the time so that I could consult with my clients, and I've now done so. The instructions I have, well, I think the first thing I'd like to point out is that the withdrawal of Church of Scotland of its objections is in fact a conditional one. And so therefore, and as I pointed out before, we broke, and therefore essentially it's a negotiating and a bargaining position. So it did require some discussion. So I've now taken instructions, and Scottish Water are in principle content to accept the withdrawal of Church of Scotland subject to access over plots 2 and 3 as they're set out in parts 2 and 3 of the schedule to the CPO. Now, I then have something further to state to that. What I have in front of me is Mr. De Paula's email sent at 1:30 today, which states in terms of on the basis that we would allow unrestricted rights of access and rights to upgrade, maintain, repair, and install services over the area being purchased from in plots 2 and 3. Now, that is understood what is meant by that, but that's just overall, that's just general parlance to communicate the general rights being sought.
Mm.
I would like, before being able to proceed and to seek the confirmation of the CPO subject to the condition, I would like to have that wording formalized, and I would like it to be formalized into the usual Scottish Water servitude conditions that would apply across any such land in which they have a similar interest. And just to elaborate on what those servitude conditions are and include, they do, for example, include a need to ensure access to Scottish Water vehicles, which would not be restricted in the course of their operations. There would be another fundamental part of the servitude conditions, which I say are in standard form. I'm simply outlining the main parts of them. But there would also be a requirement to make good any damage caused by the exercise of any such access rights, and also a requirement to indemnify Scottish Water of any expenses or other outlays that Scottish Water would incur as a result of those access rights being exercised. So whilst I say in principle we're prepared to agree to that, when I say the wording would be in accordance with the usual Scottish Water servitude conditions, and if that is all right, then we can go forward.
So really what you're saying is you want that formally in writing from Church of Scotland trustees?
I think it's the other way around. I think in general, sir, yes, that's right, the other way around. But the wording with regard to that is not the wording contained in Mr. De Paula's email today. The wording that will be binding on Church of Scotland will be the wording that is used by Scottish Water normally in servitude conditions in granting servitude rights over its property.
Okay. Mr. De Paula, have you comments on that?
I would obviously need to take formal instructions on it, sir. On principle, I don't imagine it being a problem. I mean, I wonder if perhaps if Mr. O'Carroll were to, perhaps through agents, put something in writing to me that I can then take to my client, I will get instructions and it can be formalised. I don't in principle imagine it will be an objection, but obviously it is not something I have instructions directly on at the moment, but I imagine it would be capable of agreement.
Fine.
Okay, understood. I'm a little bit anxious about this because I'm very concerned that whatever happens, whether we just plow on one way or another, but whatever happens, I need to address you, sir, and I need to satisfy you in order to satisfy the Scottish ministers that the CPO should be confirmed. And I'm very anxious that we do not lose the very anxious that we do not lose the window that we've got for submissions tomorrow at 2 o'clock, which I'm fully prepared to meet. So I think if Mr. De Paolo is not willing to accept now, having given late notice of his intention to withdraw the way that he has done, I would have to say that if that's his position and he wants to go away and potentially put the matters in jeopardy, my instructions are to then simply plow on to say that we're not prepared to accede to their withdrawal on that condition, but that we will be prepared to accede that they withdraw unconditionally and say no more. And if that's the basis, so either he can accept what I've suggested today, or he can withdraw unconditionally, and that's the position now, and he needs to make a decision now on that.
Mr. De Paula, comment?
Well, on the basis of instructions, I will withdraw with the rights subject to the servitude rights that Mr. O'Carroll has mentioned.
Well, that was the offer, and that's met with an agreement, so thank you. Just to be absolutely clear then, the Church of Scotland are withdrawing on the basis that there will be rights of access. Those rights of access will be in the usual Scottish Water terms in terms of their servitude conditions that they ordinarily apply in the course of their operations, and it would include essentially the three matters that I've outlined.
I can agree to that.
Thank you.
Right. So I think what was needed is some written confirmation now of the situation, and if it transpires that Church of Scotland trustees are to withdraw their objection, then DPA will have to be formally notified of that. I mean, my suggestion again is to leave time for that till tomorrow and reconvene at 2, where we can see if any, further progress has been made between the parties. Would that be?
Well, I'm sorry, maybe I've missed you. I think the only thing remaining then is for Church of Scotland to do is to formally notify DPA. I'm sure they could do it today, that they are formally withdrawing. And then I'll simply go ahead and address you tomorrow, taking on board the terms that we've just now agreed on the hoof today.
Is that fine with you, Mr. De Paula?
Yes, I can notify the DPA today. That's not a problem.
Right, and we can set matters in train then on that.
Right. So so tomorrow is preserved then, and if I could just indicate that I have already started drafting and I'll be able to let you have something in writing. And if I could ask, I don't know if we Mr. Mason or somebody else, but if they could keep an eye open for written submissions, so that when I address you tomorrow at 2 o'clock, you'll have them in front of you,
Yes.
so that you'll be able to follow what I'm saying, and it'll save your note taking.
Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah.
I anticipate being able to send those by about noon tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm quite sure that it has time to get to you in good time before 2 o'clock.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll talk to Mr. Mason about that, and obviously you'll copy. Will you be copying that over to Church of Scotland, or is it straight on the day presentation?
I think it's just you and me, sir, because they're no longer part of the process.
That's fine. Okay. Yeah. Anything further? So
Let me just. This is such an unusual situation. Let me just see if I've forgotten anything.
that's fine.
No. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, both of you, for participating today, and we look forward to tomorrow then, 2 o'clock.
And yeah, and so Mr. DePaul, I think, is undertaken to formally notify DPA today of their withdrawal from the process on the basis that we've discussed.
That's right.
If I could be copied to those instructing me, please, that would be very helpful.
That's
Thank
fine.
you very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much, then, and I'll close for today, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.